folks, once again, it is Donnie, your friendly neighborhood Begin Linux guru, and I just want to do a follow-up on the video that I did a few days ago about the news that the Red Hat company was killing off CentOS Linux as we know it. And I made two guesses about what was going on in that video. One guess was correct, but the other guess, it looks like, well, I was wrong. Oh, I hate to admit that I'm wrong once in a while, but but what can I do, right? I'm only human. But anyway, I speculated that IBM was the one that was calling the shots, that IBM was the one who was killing off CentOS, who made the decision to kill off CentOS, and I based that on some of the boneheaded moves that IBM has made in the past. But it turned out I was wrong. It turned out it is the Red Hat people who made that decision, and it turned out that they were considering that decision for a long time before IBM acquired Red Hat. But the other guess that I made was correct. I guessed that they were killing off CentOS because CentOS was eating into the sales of Red Hat Enterprise Linux. And so, looks like there I was correct. And I'm not going to read this entire article to you here at zdnet.com. I will post the link in the video description below for anyone who does want to read it. But the gist of it here is that there's nobody at Red Hat who wanted to go on the record to say that they were killing off CentOS because they believe that it was stealing sales from Red Hat. But apparently a lot of people were willing to go off the record, behind the scenes, and say, yeah, that's what was going on. And so, but first though, there is the fact that regardless of the reasoning, they basically, it looks like they were screwing some people. And here on Hacker News, it says, the leading comment was, imagine if you were running a business and deployed CentOS 8 based on the 10-year lifespan promise. You're totally screwed now, and Red Hat knows it. Why on earth didn't they make this switch starting with CentOS 9? Let's not sugarcoat this. They betrayed us. Okay, and over at Reddit, another person snarled, we based our open source project on the latest CentOS releases since CentOS 4. Our flagship product is running on CentOS 8, and we sure did bet the farm on the promised ELL of 31 May 2029, right? But anyway, other comments like that as well. But down here, we see Chris Wright, Red Hat's CTO, said that when CentOS Stream was introduced, developers require earlier access to code, improved and more transparent collaboration with the broader partner community, and the ability to influence the direction of new Red Hat Enterprise Linux releases. So it is these opportunities that CentOS Stream is intended to address. Okay, so it's good that they added that, but why did they end the production, the enterprise-ready production version of CentOS? Well, we can come down here and we can see that, let's see. Okay, Mike McGrath, Red Hat's VP of Linux Engineering, let the cat out of the bag in an interview, and he said, I would say that the big one for us was that CentOS itself was not actually providing that much usefulness to Red Hat. Most of the communities we set up, Fedora for example, do have a lot of bi-directional community involvement. Unfortunately, CentOS was never like that. It was always a community of users. So that contribution model was mostly one way. Well, yeah, I mean, that's how CentOS began to begin with. It began not as an innovative original product. It was always positioned as just Red Hat Linux without the Red Hat branding. It was not really meant for a community to build up, to provide back to CentOS, to provide innovation, to provide new stuff. It was always positioned as nothing but a rebrand of Red Hat, okay? And that was great. That was fine as long as CentOS was an independent organization separate from Red Hat, because there was nothing that Red Hat could do to stop them because of what I said in the previous video. Everything that Red Hat releases is under a free as-in-speech software license. So they have to allow other organizations, other people, to obtain their source code and to do whatever they want with it, whether it be making new distros or whatever, right? So then Red Hat bought CentOS. Now they're in a position to kill CentOS off, okay? Because now they're saying, no, CentOS has no value for us. It doesn't do anything for us, okay? So yeah, he says, let me repeat that. CentOS was not actually providing that much usefulness to Red Hat, and it never has. And a lot of senior Red Hat people who've known that since day one, and they haven't liked it one bit. Okay, so, and then of course we have a short list here of who uses CentOS, major companies, and to those I would add Sears Holdings and a video streaming company called SeaChange. I know that because I'm the one who trained their CentOS administrators. But anyway, and then the CentOS blog, a disgruntled user. The entire premise and the only reason anyone uses CentOS is because it's rebuilt RHEL. Congratulations on undermining that, nitwits. Oh, yeah. And exactly, and that's the biggest reason why... Oh, get out of here. Okay. And that's the biggest reason why CentOS is being retired for CentOS Stream. No one at Red Hat was willing to go on the record saying this, but numerous Red Hat executives told me that this was the case. And one said, it had almost nothing to do with IBM. We were thinking about it in detail since before the news of the acquisition even hit in fall 2018. There are two internal reasons. First, engineering and sales could not for the life of them figure out how to position CentOS in their respective portfolios, and the idea of turning CentOS into an upstream began in 2014 when Jim Perrin and CentOS board, who was a Microsoft engineer, former Red Hat developer, and CentOS board member, talked about the possibility at a Forum Internacional, whatever, in Brazil in 2014, and the result was CentOS special interest groups, which were the start of the road to CentOS Stream. Okay, I was wondering about the special interest groups. Never saw much interest in them or action in them. And let me get back up here. Kind of, I think I touched my touchpad there, made me jump down. Oh, there we go. There we go. Okay, so a former Red Hat exec confided CentOS was gutting sales. The customer perception was it's from Red Hat and it's a clone of Red Hat Enterprise Linux, so it's good to go. It's not. It's a second-rate copy. From where this person sits, this is 100% defensive to stave off more losses to CentOS. Okay? And that's right, it is 100% defensive because CentOS is not a second-rate copy. It really is Red Hat, okay? I'm sorry. It is Red Hat. You use it the same as Red Hat, except you don't have to jump through the hoops to pay a license fee and enter license information in order to access the repositories. And still another Red Hat official said, if it wasn't for CentOS, Red Hat would have been a $10 billion company before Red Hat became a $1 billion business. Oh, that is complete nonsense. That's complete hogwash. Because, as I said before, right, as said in the previous video, CentOS actually did bring some business to Red Hat because people used CentOS to learn Red Hat technologies. Without CentOS, people would have, or another free distro like it, people would have to have bought an actual subscription and paid an annual subscription fee to Red Hat in order to get a working copy of Red Hat in order to learn Red Hat. Who's going to do that when they can get Ubuntu for free and they can get an Ubuntu certification instead? Just learn Ubuntu or OpenSUSE or Debian or any other number of free of charge Linux distros. So this idea that CentOS has killed off so much business, okay, maybe they have lost some business to CentOS, but it's also brought them business. Okay, so people learn Red Hat via CentOS, and they move into positions in companies where they're going to have some influence over what distro to deploy, and so a lot of them will pick Red Hat. Okay, and a lot of people, a lot of businesses, small business started out with CentOS, and when they decided they needed a support contract, hey, they go with Red Hat. All right. So, I mean, even Microsoft, for crying out loud, Microsoft, if you want to learn Windows Server, you can get a fully functional copy of Windows Server and download it, and you can run it without registration. It'll run for about, I forget the time period, is either 3 months or 9 months, 6 months, whatever, I don't know. But you've got several months there. You can run that copy of Windows Server, and when the time expires, you download a fresh copy. It's going to be you want a fresh copy to do an update anyway. Download a fresh copy, reinstall it, and you can still run it long enough to learn Windows Server, right? So, had it not been for some free of charge distro like CentOS, where people could learn Red Hat technologies, Red Hat would have been the only operating system company in the world who would not provide a free of charge copy of their operating system so that people could learn it. Okay, so how much business would Red Hat have? How large would Red Hat be if everybody who wanted to learn Red Hat had to have bought a subscription for Red Hat? And yes, I know they have the free of charge developers subscription service, but you can't do anything with that free of charge developers subscription plan because you can't access the repositories to install your server daemons and whatever else, right? The only thing you can do with that free of charge developers plan is to write and compile software. That's it, okay? So yeah, I mean, this statement, when this Red Hat official says if it weren't for CentOS, Red Hat would have been a $10 billion company before it became a $1 billion business, I'm sorry. That just shows that this guy does not really understand free as in speech software, okay? I mean, and besides that, just the very fact that they're releasing Red Hat under a free software license, it means that anybody in the world could have downloaded that source code and made their own distros. So if it hadn't been for CentOS, hey, something else would have come along, and a lot of other alternatives have, which we'll get to in a moment, okay? So anyway, then we have another Red Hat staffer who snapped, look at the CentOS FAQ. It says right there that CentOS Linux is not supported in any way by Red Hat Incorporated. CentOS Linux is not Red Hat Linux. It is not Fedora Linux. It is not Red Hat Enterprise Linux. It is not RHEL. CentOS Linux does not contain Red Hat Linux, Fedora, or Red Hat Enterprise Linux. Well, it does to contain their source code. CentOS Linux is not a clone of Red Hat Enterprise Linux. Well, it kind of is. CentOS Linux is built from publicly available source code provided by Red Hat Incorporated for Red Hat Enterprise Linux in a completely different build system. CentOS project maintained build system. We don't owe you anything. Really? I never saw that. But you know what? That kind of condescending attitude, that's just, well, I can't say what it's being because I try to keep this channel family friendly, okay? I cannot use the word that I'm thinking of right now, okay? But you know, SUSE and Canonical, which is the publisher of Ubuntu, those are both for-profit companies. They both provide versions of their operating systems free of charge, no questions asked, and they also sell the support services. So Red Hat then, as I said, the only one of the major Linux distributors that does not provide a free of charge version, or they won't after killing off CentOS Linux. But anyway, that's it for the ZDNet article. And then over here at distrowatch.com, in their weekly news section, we have a couple of other items here. First off, OpenSUSE and Cloud Linux promote their CentOS alternatives. Okay? And again, both of these two companies, SUSE and Cloud Linux, are for-profit companies. Currently, we have SUSE offering OpenSUSE, and that is a good alternative, good stable alternative to the paid version of SUSE Enterprise. And Cloud Linux is a company which also sells support services for their Linux offerings. They have a Linux, several different Linux offerings that are tuned for the cloud, and they're not free of charge, right? But they are the company which is working on one of the CentOS alternatives, which is supposed to be released next spring. And so when that happens, you're going to have another free of charge replacement for CentOS, based on Red Hat Enterprise 8. And then down here in the questions and answers, we have what to do in the wake of Red Hat phasing out CentOS. And he does say down here, okay, if you are running CentOS Linux, okay, first thing he says is to take a deep breath and try to avoid any knee-jerk reactions. So he's basically saying, hey, just step back and wait and see what's going to happen here, because we have another entire year of support for CentOS 8. The support will not end until the end of 2021. And so we got plenty of time to figure out what to do. However, we also have some other good news about this here. If we come on down here just a little bit more. And one thing he says here is that in the future, Red Hat has suggested it will provide inexpensive or no-cost subscriptions to ease the migration from CentOS Linux to Red Hat Enterprise Linux. So in the first half of 2021, we will be introducing low or no-cost programs for a variety of use cases, including options for open source projects and communities, partner ecosystems, and an expansion of the use cases of the Red Hat Enterprise Linux Developer Subscription to better serve the needs of systems administrators and partner developers. Well, that sounds like it might be good news, but problem though, they haven't yet revealed what those low or no cost options are going to be. So they might be suitable for existing CentOS users, or they might not be. We won't know until sometime next year, sometime in 2021. So why did they not tell us this before they announced that they were killing off CentOS? Could it be that they didn't know that they were going to do this, and maybe they said, hey, we're getting a lot of backlash from this. Maybe we better do something to appease our customers in order to prevent them from going elsewhere. Because remember, there's Oracle out there, right? And Oracle is completely Red Hat compatible, and they also offer support services. And their Oracle Linux distro is still completely free, right? All right. So anyway, and also there are a lot of other Red Hat clones that are already out there or are in the works. So on in the last video, I told you about the Linux, which is what the distro from the Cloud Linux people is going to be called. And I told you about the Rocky Linux, which one of the creators of the CentOS project is working on. And also we have over here, and let's see if I can find it here. There we go, on the search page. We come over here, and we also have a list of other alternatives that are out there already. Now, this list, not the best list, because we've got ClearOS, Euro Linux, and Scientific Linux, all based on Red Hat version 7. They don't have a Red Hat 8 compatible version yet. And the firewall, of course, is special purpose only for firewalls. But then we have two others which are good alternatives. We have Oracle Linux, of course, which is up to date with Red Hat Enterprise 8. Now, in response to a comment I made on another video about this, somebody said, well, the Oracle company really isn't much better with the free software business, free software support than what Red Hat is, right? He said they're even worse. And yeah, in a way, that is correct, because when Oracle bought Sun Microsystems, they had a whole stable of free as-in-speech software products that they inherited, right? So they had like OpenOffice that they completely killed off. They had MySQL, which, yeah, they're still going with it, but the original creator of MySQL was not really happy with what they were doing with it, so he went off and created MariaDB, and they had VirtualBox virtualization program, which are still maintaining, still doing a good job with it, right? And then they had Solaris, the Solaris operating system, which Sun Microsystems had taken, had converted into free software, so anybody could download it and use it free of charge, and get the source code and compile their own distros from it. Oracle completely killed that program. Okay, they completely killed it. They said, okay, no more free Solaris, either free as in speech or free as in beer. You want Solaris now, you pay us a license for it. And then it was sometime after that they brought out their free of charge Oracle Linux as a competitor to Red Hat Linux. Now, the reason I believe that Oracle will continue supporting the free of charge Oracle Linux is because of an article I read a few years ago, where the writer said that Red Hat, the Red Hat company, had for a period of years had been using middleware. They'd been buying the middleware from Oracle, and then Red Hat went and bought JBoss and started using JBoss middleware instead of Oracle middleware. And Larry Ellison, who heads up Oracle, kind of got upset about that. And now, because of a personal grudge, I believe that that was probably the original reason that they brought out Oracle. And I also believe it's the reason that they will never discontinue Oracle Linux. So they're going to keep supporting it just to spite the Red Hat people. It's what I believe, okay? And then the other alternative here, which I found, which looks real promising, is something called Springdale Linux. And it is just exactly like Red Hat Linux, except that it's got some extra repositories in it for scientific type programs, right? But if you don't need those scientific type programs, you don't have to install that repository, and you can just download it and use it just like as a regular server, okay? And it's pretty cool here, the way they do it, because you see here, instead of making you download an entire 4.7 gigabyte or whatever it is DVD worth of software, to burn on a DVD, you can just download this boot.iso image, either boot.iso or pxeboot. So the pxeboot you can put on a TFTP server locally, boot off of that, and install the Springdale Linux that way. Or you can download this boot.iso, and which is only like 650 megabytes. So this fits on a regular CD, right? And instead of having all of the stuff on there to install, it just does a live install. It does a live download as you're installing. Kind of like Debian. If you've ever installed Debian, that's the way it works, where it just downloads stuff from the servers as you install it, right? So that works pretty cool. And I tried it here a couple of days ago, and it works okay. And in fact, they don't even have the DVD. So you can download a DVD for Springdale 7 and older, but not for 8. But that's okay. This boot.iso works just fine, as long as you have a live internet connection as you are installing it, okay? So anyway, those are my thoughts, okay? But just to sum up, as I said, the idea that these Red Hat executives are saying that CentOS has caused Red Hat to not be able to become a $10 billion company. As I say, that's ludicrous, okay? Because there would always be a Red Hat alternative out there, right? And as I said, just where would the Red Hat company be if people hadn't been able to have a free, or at the very least, a low-cost way of running some sort of a Red Hat type distro in order to learn the Red Hat technologies, okay? And then, also, as I said, possible good news coming. Maybe Red Hat's going to offer some suitable free replacements for CentOS, but with Red Hat branding. I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. But anyway, I think that's pretty much it. Okay, and I do want to point out that this video has been brought to you by my sponsor, which is me, and my book, Mastering Linux Security and Hardening, 2nd edition. And I am recording this on 24 December. Yes, that's right, Christmas Eve of 2020. And that means that my publisher, Packt Publishing, is running its annual end of the year $5 sale on all ebooks. So you can get the ebook version of Mastering Linux Security and Hardening for only $5. And that's a good deal. You can't beat that with a stick, I'm telling you, okay? But not only that, but you can get any other ebook version of any book at Packt Publishing for only $5. So if you're like me, you're going to want to go in here and just stock up on your reading material. As I say, it's Christmas Eve, so hey, you can buy a copy for yourself, or maybe you want to buy some books for your significant other geek. If you have a significant other geek, okay? But yeah, great deal here. Be sure to check it out. The purchase link will be in the subscription below. And I do want to mention as well that I don't know how long this sale will last, because for whatever reason, Packt Publishing never announces ahead of time when the $5 sale is going to end. And it kind of varies. It's going to be sometime in January, I'm fairly sure. Sometimes it's the first week in January. I have seen it go a little bit later than that. And kind of interesting that they don't do that, because, you know, one of the first basic principles of marketing is to give your prospective buyer a sense of urgency. And by not saying what the ending date for the sales be, they're not doing that. But I am going to give you a sense of urgency. I'm going to tell you, if you want the $5 deal, you got to do it quickly, because it is going to end. It's going to end sometime after New Year's. I don't know exactly when, but it will end. So jump on that, and hey, get you your $5 book, or a whole bunch of them. Anyway, I think that is it. I do thank you for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, and maybe even share the video out with some other folk. And we'll see you next time.